What's up, everybody? I'm James Baney, and you're watching the Clone Wars fan show. Today, we're going to be talking about Season 7, Episode 6, Deal, No Deal. No, Howie Mandels. No Howie Mandels on this episode. Before we get much further into the episode, the discussion on, every little detail, if you will, we got to give it a score. And on this show, we rate out of clones. So how many clones out of 10 do I want to give this one? Let's see here. Last week's was a 6, which was not bad. Little on the lower side, though. Lowest one of this series yet. I think I'm going to bump this one up to a 7.3. Let's do that. 7.3. I'm kind of basing it off the first episode, The Bad Batch, right? I think just while this one led to a lot more interesting things, as the episode ends, I'm like, oh, it's just starting to get good, and then it ends. So that's a good side. I was interested. I was caught on. Still a lot of stuff where I'm like, what was the point of this scene? Like, really, what was the point of this scene? So, but we'll get into the nitty gritty. So that's my score. First of all, okay. Right at the very beginning, what's wrong with the name Silver Angel? Like, it's probably supposed to be cheesy or whatever, but like, that's a better name than the Millennium Falcon. Like, if we had never heard that name before and someone was like, I'm calling my ship the Millennium Falcon, I'd be like, those are two random words. They have literally nothing to do with each other. I can't even put at least Silver Angel is like, oh, I'm calling my ship an angel, and I'm calling it the Silver Angel because it's silver. You know, I think the point here is that it's supposed to be like like a beginner, like a noob would name that's such a simple name, I guess. But I thought it was over the top, pushing how bad that name was. Like, Ahsoka's like, you might want to rethink that name. And then like later they bring it up again. They're like, that's what I told her. I'm like, chill out, man. I think like if I were Trace in that moment, I would have been like, what the heck? Like, geez, be nice. You both are being very rude right now about my name choice. So I think it's fine, Trace. Name it whatever you want. Rising up out of the pit. Man, I love Coruscant. Sometimes, I wish that we had more Coruscant, and I know we've had it a lot, obviously, with the Clone Wars and in the prequels and stuff. But, man, it's such a missed opportunity that we didn't get it in the sequel trilogy. I think we were all really hoping for, and even Colin Trevorrow was like wanting to bring it back for Episode 9. That was by Pablo Hidalgo said that, but yeah, we didn't get it, but it's so cool. It's so beautiful. It's nice to see them, coming out and like entering into like this lane, which I thought was kind of a dumb scene, but I understand. We'll get to its purpose here in a second. But the just like them being like stationary and then like outside the window, you can see like the ships moving around and stuff. I'm like, man, it's so cool. I really like Coruscant, and I'm glad that it was in a scenic view here in this particular episode. Yeah, this is kind of weird though, right? Because like Trace is like, do I need a license to drive? What are we doing? Like, why even at all is she trying to get into the military lane? Okay, maybe she didn't know, but then they're like, get out of the military lane, and she's like, I know what I'm doing. Stop telling me what to do. But she didn't have a purpose, because she just like got in the military lane and then slowly moved out of the military lane. And it was like almost a very big deal. In fact, it's weird because the person who gets on the comm is Yularen. And I'm like, that it's not like a random officer guy who's just like, hey, you're in the wrong lane. Like, what are you doing? You know, it's like, that would be like if you were speeding and then like the governor pulled you over and he's like, what are you doing? Why are you speeding in my state? Like, I don't know. Just, it seemed a little too much. But what was cool is then they cut up to, you know, the ship. You see Yularen standing there, making his season 7 debut, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe it was in other episodes. But Anakin's sitting there, and they have this moment that's very Return of the Jedi, which was very cool. A little, you know, what are the odds? Kind of isn't that convenient. But she happens to be passing the ship, and Anakin's like tuning in on it, and he's like, who's on the ship? And he's feeling it, and then they're cutting back and forth between the two of them, and I don't know. It was, do they have a clearance code? Like, it was kind of like, I was about to, he says, I was about to arrest them, which is and he lets them go, versus I was about to let them go, and then he's obviously, I don't know, you know the scene with Vader, but yeah, cool little callback there. And I like that scene a lot. This is what I was talking about earlier when I said there's just scenes in this that I'm like, there's literally no point to this. What a wasted few minutes. So they go into hyperspace, and they're in hyperspace, and they're flying there. And it's just weird. I'm sitting there, and they're having this conversation about how good or bad this ship is. And I'm like, okay, I get it. It's not really that important. This must be setting up for something later when the ship like massively fails, which it never did. But it's like bumping around, and they're in hyperspace, and it's weird too because like there's this light that's like behind them, and it's like slowly moving as if they're like slowly passing like a light source on the outside, and they're clearly in hyperspace. And I don't know, it's just weird. Like the whole thing wasn't working. And then the biggest thing to me is they're like, and why is it so bumpy? And then she's like, oh, the air brakes were on. Like, the air brakes make any sort of difference in hyperspace, where it's like clearly the ship, it's not hitting air. There's no resist. I don't know. It's so dumb. But oh, the air brakes were on. Sorry, my bad. And then like that's the end of the scene. Why? What was the point? But then we get out of hyperspace, and as a fan myself, I noticed it right away before they said anything. But you're headed into the big murky clouds. You got the little markers in the tunnel, and I knew immediately we were getting a call back. Oh, yeah. We're here in Kessel. And, yeah, I was very happy with the kind of solo-y feel of this. A lot of back and forth of them arguing whether this is a good idea or not, whatever. We'll bypass all that. What I thought was interesting was getting into the planet, and you still see the mist around. There's a little connection there with one of our t-shirts or whatever, but yeah, you get into the planet, and it's immediately like full of trees and stuff, and I was just like very confused. I was like, we're going to Kessel, this is gonna be awesome, I know exactly what to expect. I don't know what I'm looking at. But yeah, I was very confused for a few minutes because we have this beautiful planet. We land on it. There's like a temple, a castle of some sort, and I don't know. It was weird. And then they start talking, and the name was the Yoruba family, and there is mention of the Yoruba family in the Solo official guide, like the visual dictionary and stuff. And I talk a little bit about this, and it's nice to see that sometimes there are things where they kind of plan the world, and to us it feels like new, but to the story group or to people who are writing these tales and making sure everything connects, like they're like, oh well, we'll just have them land over here. That's where the Yorubas are. We are aware of those, So it's kind of a solo connection, but not really, kind of from just the official guide. But as the story goes, is that the Yoruba family was kind of in rule, the royal family was in rule of Kessel, and then they started allowing the medicine or the spice to be mined on one hemisphere of the planet, like the other side, and then because they were, doing the spice thing, the Pikes who were nearby like came over and kind of forcefully took over, and then they were like, well, we're gonna start using slaves and other things like that. And then the Yoruba family apparently like kind of just took a blind eye to it. Like they're accepting all the money, but they're not really aware of like the conditions and or maybe they are and they're not really paying attention. That's kind of the backstory of why these people are so rich. And then I was looking into that, and then as the episode goes on, that kind of paints the story. It's like you have like the slaves like serving them, and I don't know, like he seems to be like, oh, our spice could be used for all sorts of medicines. I don't know what you're talking about. And it's like, I think it's supposed to be pulled off like it's a sly thing, but I actually think there's something to be said about how the fact that like they're unaware that this stuff is happening. So I don't know. All of it's interesting. I like seeing a little bit more connectivity. And then as they head over to the planet after they get the spice, there's a character that's referenced here, Maerk Krim. Maerk Krim was in the Dark Disciple novel, which is interesting because, again, it points to that same thing where, like, you have the story group who set up all this stuff with, the Pike Syndicate and in this era and stuff, and then Maerk Krim, and we're going to have her in these episodes, and then we're going to have them in these episodes here, and then the show got canceled, so they didn't get to do these episodes, and then they turned the Dark Disciple stuff into another novel, but it was all Clone Wars, and it was all connected, and I just thought it was really cool that there was like another little reference in there to things that they had planned, which was neat. All right, now that we've said all that, a lot to say there about the history of the Pikes. We're up in hyperspace. We're traveling to this planet, and there's a lot of arguing going on. They're fighting back and forth, but in a good way. I'm super stressed out listening to them argue. But at the same time, I'm understanding every perspective. She wants to get the money. She wants to avoid getting them into bigger trouble. They're trying to solve that out. Meanwhile, you have this other person who's not being given all the information. She doesn't know Ahsoka's a Jedi. She doesn't know all this other stuff. She doesn't really even know who the Pike Syndicate are, these gangsters. She doesn't know what her sisters pulled her into. I get all that, but man... Have you ever seen that movie, Day the Earth Stood Still, the newer one, like that had Keanu Reeves in it or whatever, or even like War of the Worlds or something? Sometimes when they put like these kids in, they bring the kids along with the journey, and yeah, they're supposed to be kids, which they're not supposed to fully know what's going on, and they get the knowing party like into more trouble, but it's such a frustrating thing, like when you're trying to sort something out and then you have another character that's like, well, why don't we just dump the freights, because that solves everything, and it made me mad at her for being so stupid, but I think ultimately that's kind of the point. But I don't know, man, if I were on that thing, I'd just be like, Ahsoka's trying to do the nice thing. She's like, you guys just didn't understand the severity of the situation. And I'm like, I would never hang out with these people. They just are ridiculous. One of them's getting me into Kessel runs, and the other one is like dumping all the stuff. It's so stressful. I was just like, all right, whatever. However, then when we get there, she does the whole mind trick thing, and that was cool, and they start to break away. Again, kind of being a little stupid here, like, did you not think you would get a tractor beam or something? But I don't know. But they get caught, and I'm really starting to be on the edge of my seat because I'm trying to think, How are they gonna get themselves out of this situation? I'm almost wondering, like, when does Maul come in? Like, is he going to rescue them from this and be like, oh, they're with me? And then, like, somehow, I don't know, he comes in. Maybe that's a little bit of my predictions for the next episode is Maul might be involved and maybe help them get out of this situation somehow. I don't want to say rescue, but, like, I don't know, realize, like, oh, they're mine, they belong to me, and then we'll have to figure out how they get away from Maul. But yeah, overall, I did like this episode. I just looked down and I saw there was another note. One of the Pike guys was like, how do I get in through this door when I don't have the password? And he blasts the lock, which does exactly what he wants it to do. It opens the door. So what's the point of any lock ever? That's that convenient door blasting the control thing that I talked about. Oh well. But again, it's the end of the episode. I'm excited for where this is going to go. I think that we're headed clearly in the right direction. Like, we had that episode where we were introduced to these characters, and that's all good and fine. But now let's see how these characters can connect us to the larger, bigger story that we want to tell. And this is just the beginning. Like, obviously, Ahsoka's just there to help out. Now she's being drug into bigger things. The Pike Syndicate, Kessel, potentially Darth Maul and pirates and other things. Like, okay, I get it. That we're going the right direction now. So I am optimistic for the rest of the season at this point. Hopefully we've reached the stretch where all of the setup episodes, the filler episodes, whatever, are done, and we can get on with the good stuff. So that's it. All right, and that's it for this episode of the Clone Wars Fan Show. If you guys like what we're doing here, I'm doing them every Friday after the episodes come out. I'm putting out the episodes, so please give it a like. If you want to subscribe to the channel, that would be perfect, please, because we're doing stuff with Resistance Broadcast every Monday and Thursday. That's 2 full hour-long episodes for you to get by, talk about Star Wars news, discussions, other things like that. Not to mention all the extra stuff that John and Lacey are doing on their own, just like this. And just come and hang out. And until next time, until episode 7, we'll see you around.